Hey, and welcome to Beyond the Raise podcast, where we get under the hood of the founder scaling stories. Will and I are lucky enough to be here with Tom Cox, CEO and founder, and Sally Sattery, co-founder of Decent Energy. Welcome to the podcast, both of you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
No
Thanks, guys.
problem. More than welcome. More than welcome. So I guess first thing what we normally sort of cover off is, tell us a little bit about, Decent Energy, and I guess more importantly, the problems that I'm sure you're solving.
Yeah, sure. So the way that I like to explain it at the minute is we are halving the cost of electricity for everyone, but we're going to reduce the carbon intensity of electricity by about 40%. We're going to do all of that without any additional hardware or behavior change required for the customers, be that businesses or residential customers that we're working with, and we'll get paid from the savings that we make people. So it's a nice win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there a bigger mission in terms of, introducing new parts of the business, or is that basically the sort of the end goal for now?
So we were kind of founded on a dual mission of doing something to address fuel poverty and the cost of energy generally, and speeding up decarbonisation of the grid, which we describe as a dual mission, but actually quite conveniently, both parts are kind of self-fulfilling. You do one and the other comes along quickly, because green energy tends to be cheaper, and also so the decarbonisation angle, if we're using the cheaper, greener energy, then we decarbonise the grid at the same time anyway. So it's kind of what we were set up to achieve.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things that sounds like a really smart idea, but actually in reality is really hard to pull off. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we could definitely say that. But for reasons you might not suspect, we hired a marketing agency a little while ago, who some really great guys actually. They also have a podcast called Zero Ambitions, to name drop in the middle.
No, that's a good one.
We're making an intro, and I mentioned you guys there. But yeah, they summarised one of the biggest problems that we've got in we're selling a solution to a problem that people don't yet know they have. And actually the way that we can best describe that, which is kind of all over our pitch deck, is folks go and get all of the sustainable, renewable tech that they think they need to make their house more green. And actually I did. So I've got heat pump, I've got solar panels, a battery, got an EV charger and an EV. And what we realized was that I was still paying way too much money for my energy. And that's all about how we manage demand. So it's how we're consuming energy, where and when we're consuming energy, and what energy we're consuming. We've actually really kind of shifted our thinking in the past few months beyond. We kind of started off very much if we optimize a battery to charge all the green energy, charge up the green energy, then we'll use that throughout the day, and then all of the bills will be cheaper, which is true to an extent, but actually it's much more about using as much of that energy as we possibly can. So the next stage of the business, we're focusing much more on kind of heat pumps and electrified heat and EV charging to make sure that we're utilizing as much of that renewable as possible, and then storing as much as we need to, but not necessarily over storing, because especially for customers got renewables like solar generation, we don't want to charge the battery and pay for energy that would have come in effectively for free later. Yeah. There's a big technical challenge, but I think the bigger challenge is explaining this to people and helping them understand that they've got this problem, that they're leaving this money on the table.
Yeah. And what do you feel, just out of interest, a reasonable and realistic saving would be to an average household if they sort of put all this into place?
Varies at the minute. The simulation that we did in July of last year, did a simulation across 40,000 households using some low voltage meter data to effectively look at what the cost reduction would be if each one of those, I say households, I mean smart meters effectively. So each one of those could be commercial, could be residential properties. If they each had a 5 kilowatt hour battery and a 5 kilowatt inverter, what that would look like in terms of saving. The result we got was about a 56% cost reduction in the price of electricity, which is huge, but also kind of good in some ways, bad in the others, because that's using historical data. So that means that we know exactly to the watt hour how much electricity was used in any 30-minute period, which obviously we can't tell the future. If we could tell the future, we would be doing this. We'd be sat on an island somewhere. But so we kind of described that as like the high watermark of where just import optimization, what that could achieve. And that was only on import purchasing cheap energy. Where we're getting to next is also doing flexibility trading, and then looking later in the year at peer-to-peer energy trading, which we think would would increase the potential kind of savings. But when we look in like practically what we can save people on a day-to-day basis, where we're running what we call kind of historical shift on an individual customer, that's usually between kind of 25 and 35%. In real terms, in 2024, I do this all the time. I say in 2024, I will one day run the 25 numbers. We got the price per kilowatt hour down in my house to about 17 pence, which was about a 36% cost reduction over the course of our energy for that year, which worked out to about £700 real term saving. And as I say, we're a fully electrified household. So not only is that our heating and our electrical consumption, but that's also our driving for the year as well. And that's all the EV charging as well.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a sizable chunk.
Yeah. It definitely is. And it's fascinating. I would say, feel like we've kind of discovered fire, but now we need to just convince everyone that fire's a good idea.
No, that's really interesting. So take us back to the early days then. So what did the company look like then versus now?
So I think it was an idea in Tom's head mostly, and he was advertising. So we haven't seen each other, I don't think, for a decade at that point, because we went to university together. And I was looking for a new role, and Tom had put something up, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I reached out to Tom on LinkedIn and was like, is that role still available? And he just replied with, no, I don't think that role's for you, but I've got an idea. And that's kind of how Decent was born. We then spent any free time we had working on this project for a couple of months, seeing if it was an actual viable thing. And then Decent was born. We started getting some of Tom's old contractor friends working with us. We've had some of my contractor friends working with us, just building it out. And what's been great is it's a really good bunch of people, both from a work perspective, in the sense we all kind of want to make an improvement and work together, but also everyone understands we've got kids and things like that. So actually the fact that there's no meetings around the school pickup has just been a lifeline for me, because it means that I can just get on with my life whilst also doing a project that I'm passionate about. I don't know if you want to add to anything to that, Tom.
Yeah, no, I think it's really nice to see where we've come. Like sometimes I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, you've been doing this for how long?" I was like, "Yeah, but we started a day a week." So Sally and I both started like 1 day a week almost 2 years ago, just like as I say, kind of testing the water and seeing if it worked. And then we're now up to kind of, there's about 10 of us working on the project, but it's like a lot of folks are like 1 day a week still. Me and our colleague Luke are the only two folks that are actually full time on this at the moment, and then Sally's part time as well. So we're quite a spread out team. I like to describe everyone else as kind of supporting cast members. But we've had some really incredible help from a lot of folks that we've known either in the energy industry or more broadly. And my contacts usually come from much more outside. But actually, and I think again, one of the problems that we've realized is very much the user experience angle and helping people understand what energy data is and how their house is consuming data. And what we've realized is that's actually much more of a UX problem than it is a technical problem. And we've got lots of folks from like hospitality and telco and retail that have come along this journey from industries that have a much more mature digitalized view than maybe energy does at the minute.
Okay. You're 10 at the moment, the team, but some of those are in a sort of part-time, like a combination of. So that's pretty impressive growth in the time frame that you've done it, right? I mean, not easy to try to build this product, break into a market and sort of go on that journey, right? So I'm sure along the way there's been some mishaps and some challenges, problems to overcome. Talk to us a little bit about what.
So what have been our biggest challenges?
I think the fact that backend and analytics went down 2 different database structures at the beginning because they were both free and we were both comfortable with them. And then we've had to do a whole database migration, which wasn't planned. But the product is far quicker because we've spent the time doing that. But it did mean that we lost a bit of time refactoring things. When you're such a small company, you don't expect to have to do refactoring.
Definitely some technical debt and decisions made early on that then slowed us down a little bit. But I also, it's an interesting one because you've got this constant tension, right? Of you can try and get it right first time, but to get it right first time, you need to spend so much time doing analysis that actually have you kind of wasted all that good time when you could have just been building something. So I feel like we struck a reasonable balance there of just try and go fast and not break stuff. So it's probably the right way of putting it, to not quote Musk.
Yeah. And I think then the other major mishap from my perspective would be the Tom and I not realizing everyone understands what we're talking about. I will never forget my mum saying to me, "Yeah, but what is an inverter?" After I'd done this whole spiel about what decent energy is. Even though she has one in her property, it's realizing that actually the audience we're targeting don't understand a lot of this. And it's that communication change. I personally have really struggled with it because I just go into as soon as I'm on a roll, I can talk about it for hours kind of thing. But needing to actually strip it back to more basic terms and explain things simpler is I've definitely struggled with.
Is that something that you've had to overcome, or does to the user, the consumer of your product and service, is the savings the selling point? I mean, or do you need to get sort of technical and explain to people, this is an inverter, this is what it does, this is sort of how we do it? Or are they just actually caring about the kind of end, right, I'm going to save this amount, cool, that's good.
Yeah, it's about...
Oh, go for it, Tom.
Yeah, I think it's about explaining enough that they get it, and then not explaining so much that you're then freaking people out and sending them off in a and kind of overwhelming them. And I think actually we've just redesigned the onboarding flow very much kind of with that in mind. It's like we used to have I think it was like a 10-stage process to get them onboarded, and like just death by survey. And it was all really important information, but then it's just about how can you kind of get that information from a user in a way that feels a lot less heavy up front. So we kind of let them on board, introduce some concepts, tell them the things that they could unlock if they were to provide us with certain bits of data, and just kind of help them understand how spending time giving us that information is then going to contribute to us being able to make savings for them. So I think that was important. So yeah, I would say going back to your previous question, but I think one of those key learnings was asking for too much up front and then possibly putting users off a little bit. And actually one that I quite regularly reference, which is a little bit embarrassing to be fair, but I was a management consultant for a number of years and spent a good portion of that time trying to explain to kind of exec level folks that they are not their customer, and that they shouldn't just assume that their customer is going to buy something because they like it and they understand that it's a good product. And I think I very much started off with that mindset, because I was like, no, but I am this time. I really am my customer. I built this literally to solve the problem for myself. So I started off very much in this position of, if I build it, they will cut them. And then I built it, and then it took ages to get anyone to pay any attention. Yeah, so I learned a lesson I'd already learned and tried to teach lots of other people the hard way, which was fascinating learning.
Funny, you've got to go through those steps every time, no matter how many times you might have done it before. Seen and spoken to people have done exactly that. But, you're not alone.
It's a good humbling experience.
And do you think, out of interest though, Tom, with that, was that because it was the market not understanding what you were offering rather than you not being the customer, because clearly you were, but what do you think was the sort of the pause in people coming?
Yeah. So I think it's a knowledge gap, and it's like an education piece, because I went through the process of setting this up for ourselves and managed to make really decent savings, and then thought, okay, yeah, there's clearly a need for that. But during that time, I did this like ridiculous deep dive on energy, and learned how the wholesale market worked, and learned how flexibility trading worked, and looked at how peer-to-peer might work in the UK, and spent all of this like really the half-hourly carbon intensity of the grid and all this other stuff. And then somehow I just assumed that everyone else had come on that journey with me. So I started talking to people about it. Why did you get this? Yeah, it's really fascinating. There's a field in science that I really like called science communication, which is less about the clever understanding incredibly complex concepts. Is more about explaining them to people. And it's always, again, it's a field I've really, really liked. And there's a lot of a guy called Richard Wiseman who does really great books on just explaining complex concepts to people. So again, kind of another one of those humbling moments of like, I was really obsessed with this for years, and now why have I not taken the learnings of it? You need to talk, you need to meet people where they're at and help them understand complex concepts rather than just kind of dump it all on them at once.
Yeah, that's really hard, isn't it? Okay, so then look, obviously Tim will touch a little bit more on sort of the hiring and sort of scaling you've done, which is as you said, been quite impressive. So with that sort of in mind, was there, one hire that you like really changed the trajectory of the company, or, you sort of were very much, why didn't we hire this person earlier?
Yeah. Like, I think so. I probably agree. Luke was an absolute no-brainer, which was also a really random one, because one, we weren't necessarily looking to hire anyone at the time, like in the immediate term. We got approached by a recruiter who just did an excellent job of finding the right people. But we were interested to see what was out there and see like folks that were in this space, because at some point we knew that we were going to need to expand the team. And they came to us with one person. We thought that person was perfect, and we got really excited and tried to hire them, and then they ended up taking another offer. And then they came to us with Luke, and Luke was even more perfect, and like really, in a really bizarre way, had so many skills that we were already set up for needing. Like even the same like front end development framework that we were using on the website. Plus, he was a physicist and understood energy, and it was just a really good one. But yeah, so you can probably add to that a little bit.
No, I totally agree. I remember us going for a drink after we interviewed him in London, and just both of us being like, why did we not do this sooner? Like, this is a no-brainer. And what's been really good is it means that because I'm part-time at the moment, 'cause I still have my son once a week, there's always someone in the office. And it means that at weekends, there's now 3 of us taking it in turns being on call and things. And he's just jumped in head first, and just like his first week, I was just like, this is brilliant. Like, he's just picked it up and got it working. So yeah, for me, Luke has been a transformation for us, which was much needed, and also helped Tom and I delegate a little bit, which we both suck at. So.
Yeah. No, that's good to hear, because I think those first few hires any hire is important, but I think when you're a startup and, small, it's so important that those first few hires do exactly what you've just said there. They take some of the pressure off you and all the rest of it. But why was it the fact that you were both in the camp of thinking, oh, it's okay because we can just do that ourselves? Or was it that you just hadn't necessarily thought about the value that an extra person could bring?
I think it's a combination. I think it's, yes, we just do it ourselves, but also we don't want to spend the money. Obviously, Tom bootstrapped this initially, so we've always been conscious of what funds are left in the bank. So we were just like, do we want to commit to this money? And yeah, it was also at that point, I think we were starting to struggle in terms of we just couldn't do everything. And one thing we've always said is like, this is our baby and we want it to be successful, but it shouldn't take over our whole lives as well. Like, we've both got kids at home and partners and in Tom's case, chickens that all need looking after as well. So we just need to it's getting the balance right. And yeah, that was part of it, was getting the balance right. And we needed Luke for his brain for sure at that point. Like, it was the data science side of it. Like, my background is data science, but by that point I was being pulled in so many directions. My data science brain was not focused on what it needed to be on, and I needed a new set of eyes, and that's why he came in. And what Shifter is becoming now, thanks to him, is brilliant.
I think we very much set off with the intention of making sure that we don't this doesn't take over our lives, but I think it definitely has for me. I think you get so obsessed with solving a problem, and you're like, so it's
totally.
But it's been nice actually, because I think that previously in my career I've done a lot of really interesting jobs with like loads of fascinating companies. But I think when you found a problem and you found, like I said to someone the other day, like I really feel like I've got a purpose, much more than I did in management consulting.
Yeah. Well, no, I was about to say, it's fine becoming obsessed with it and taking up all your time if you're loving what you're doing. And if you're fortunate enough to have found that, then absolutely just go all in, I guess.
Yeah.
And the answer to this question might also be Luke, but do you feel that he was someone that you hired too late, or now in hindsight, actually, have you thought, do you know what, that role we should have definitely hired a bit earlier? And like I say, that might be Luke again, but just out of interest.
I think it was perfect timing. I think also, like, Luke created the role rather than the role us necessarily going look for something. As I said, we're kind of speculatively looking around for who in this industry might have this really niche set of skills. And it wasn't exactly what we were hiring for. It was a lot more what we needed than we even realized at that point.
Yeah. Fair enough. And then what about any sort of hires that just looked quite risky on paper, or you guys didn't quite feel you were ready to offer that type of role, or whatever that might be? Did you have any of those moments in there?
We also hired one other person, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying it was a bit of a disaster all round. Like, lovely guy, very eager to help, but we hired a salesperson way too early when we weren't ready for a salesperson, I think. And also we hired a salesperson who came from a background of like large corporate sales, where there was kind of some structure in place and a sales process and sales strategy.
Yeah.
And I think that was a learning on both sides, and we left on very amicable terms and still stay in touch.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't the right fit at the right time.
Yeah.
We weren't mature enough as an organization from a commercial perspective to be able to really make that a success. And so we've taken a step back, and we actually now have someone who's come in as kind of chief commercial officer on a fractional basis, who's helping to put in place some of those kind of foundational things that we would need in order to make that role successful in future.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was an early learning as well.
Well, it sounds like you got to that conclusion quite quickly, which I think is always part of the problem with, I wouldn't say a bad hire, but a wrong hire. It's like, just, no, it'll be fine. We can make it work. And it just, you just got to accept it, make the tough decision and move on. But there is an emotional and a commercial cost to that, which when you're small and a startup is even more of a bigger problem. So talk us through that sort of process with that chap.
Yeah, and I think actually, we both went in eyes open and said right at the start, like, we're going to do this on a fixed term contract basis, because we're not sure that this is a role that's going to be needed. Obviously, we knew sales was a role that was needed long term, but we didn't know if it was the right fit at the right time. So yeah, we went in with kind of that mindset and said, let's try it for a bit and see how it works. So there was an agreement kind of on both sides there that this was an experiment for a period of time, and then we would see if that was helping us move the needle. And I think as well, especially because we're in a fairly nascent market as well, not just in terms of this kind of energy management, energy savings, digital solution type space, but even if you look at like the flexibility markets in the UK, like there's been a very limited amount of time that they've been available to companies like ours. So yeah, I think testing and learning this stuff and trying things out is important. But as you say, with limited run rate and a small team, then some of these risks can be quite large risks.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, over to you, my friend.
Just to build on that kind of commercial focus, right? And this could be to a question for either of you, but what part of the sales journey was hardest? And that could be, well, ideally something that maybe like outsiders wouldn't consider, or something that you didn't know about the industry you're operating in, but you've since learned.
Yeah, so I think. Oh, so that's
I was going to say the bill. Trying to explain the bill to people when you're taking a percentage of the savings you're making them. Trying to explain that was really challenging, and we're still working on that, I think. Well, how do you know that this is actually what you've saved me, and making sure the simulation, like, we can explain it clearly to someone. I think for me, that's probably been the hardest part, but you might disagree.
Is that,
no.
Is that because because people think you're going to magic how you guys get paid out of thin air, and that therefore it's a misunderstanding, or is it they don't believe the process as to how you're getting paid?
It's kind of the process interesting, because the data that you would need to show them what they would have spent had we not optimized is destroyed in the process of doing the optimization, right?
Absolutely,
So it's a bit of an education piece. There's a lot of trust. So actually, one of the things that we've said all the way along, like, I rock up to your front door and I say, if you give me this magic number from your inverter manufacturer's website, I'm going to make all of your energy 35% cheaper. That's a hard sell.
Yeah.
Lots of people look at you like you're trying to sell them snake oil. So yeah, I think there's a huge trust piece there, which is one of the reasons that we try and be as transparent as we possibly can be. So we tell you exactly what you're going to do with your equipment, at what time of day. We tell you why we're going to do it, and even with flexibility trading, the plan there is that we will be completely transparent with what equipment we used, when we used it, what we earned. And then again, we take a portion of the earning, share the value with the customer, because we've given them access to the market, but we believe that the biggest incentive should sit with them as the asset owner. So yeah, I think there's a big trust piece there that just takes a little while to build. And also this might need to change a little bit with the two products that we're now looking into in Flex and peer-to-peer, because there is going to be a contractual tie-in, not from us, but from the folks that we're contracting with to provide the service to the customer. But especially with Shifter, we said that we don't want to create a contractual tie-in. We want to say to customers, no, you stay with us because we're giving you the best value you can possibly get. And again, I think that goes to trust. Like we optimize your equipment at the end of the first month. We go, this is how much we saved you. We explain how we did that. And then you've got the option to go set up a direct debit and we can then go bill you from there. And if you don't like that, you don't trust it, you don't believe it, give us some feedback and we can go on your merry way. I think that bit's pivotal. But then I think also the other interesting thing with sales is we were focused for a really long time just wanting to serve residential because we wanted a business that was going to provide a decent impact. And actually addressing fuel poverty, the best way to do that is go to the individuals that are in the residential sector in social housing and council housing. But all the while we were doing that, we kept on having commercial folks kind of come knock on the door and go, can you do that for us? We could really do with that. That would be great. No, we're busy trying to save all the commercial, all the residential folks. And I think that was one of the things we've realized more recently is we kind of need to serve the customers that are asking us to be served. Yeah. Even if we know that the longer term, we want to start working more deeply with the residential, and also looking at ways that we can access the residential sector without needing to go to folks directly. So looking at a lot of B2B2C, working with council and social housing, house builders, kind of those folks, gives us the scale that we need without the very expensive kind of customer acquisition and complex sales journey.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that's actually going to be one of my next questions, is sort of what any sort of potential customer types that have turned out to be a distraction. And it sounds like you've kind of already come to that conclusion and almost battered them away just for the moment. But is that the plan then still to kind of try and break into that commercial market as well, or? Yeah.
So we're looking at a few kind of ideal customer groups at the moment. But yeah, it's mostly going to be on the commercial side and via B2B2C. But yeah, I think it's a lesson that we've learned very recently. And actually it's also a lesson you have to learn, right? Because you don't know who your ideal customer is. You've got lots of ideas about who it might be. So we had a spreadsheet called PCP rather than ICP, which is potential customer profiles. And then we also had 3 different ways that we could sell the solution to folks as well. So now we've got 8 times 3, and it starts to get quite complex. So we've only just recently started to nail down exactly where we think we need to double down on our efforts. And also there was a learning for me there as well, because I think letting go of some of that earlier vision and where you wanted to get to is quite a big mental leap, because you're used to thinking, even not even necessarily emotional, but obviously that plays into it as well. But there's also just a way that you've built up what the company is going to be, the vision in your brain. Now need to adapt to be able to work out how best to serve that new customer group.
Yeah.
Out of interest, is there not more upside on the commercial side for decent energy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, more upside, but potentially less volume. So that's always the trade-off. Is when we did rewind a little bit. When I started looking into this and tried to work out what the actual market size was, we did some analysis and a lot of guesswork, because basically the organizations that were supposed to write down how many batteries were being deployed in the UK didn't, not naming anyone, MCS. And unfortunately, we lost about 8 years worth of good data, which means that the UK does not know how much battery storage is installed at a residential level. So what we've done is we've looked across the market, looked at other countries that have introduced similar incentives to the UK, and we think there could be up to about 2 gigawatt hours plus of battery storage in people's like lofts and garages right now that's already been installed. And to provide some context, that was about a sixth of the grid scale battery storage that's been deployed so far. So all these massive battery sites that have been deployed in fields, there's a sixth of that that's just being not completely wasted, but almost completely wasted, just sat in people's lofts and garages. So bringing that into grid scale operation would be absolutely transformative. But yeah, that was... Oh, sorry, I've completely forgotten the original question. I've gone off on a tangent. But
no, that's fine. No, that's surprising and fascinating. Yeah.
It's very true, like you say. I mean, I've spent a lot of the more recent part of my career operating in a kind of flat environment and for similar. And as you say, you have to cast that net wide, and you don't exactly know what the ideal customer is going to be yet. But I always say, the pursuit of perfection is a great way to procrastinate. So it's better just to be out there executing and doing things and finding things out and iterating and changing it, and you may end up landing somewhere different to what you initially planned, and sort of accepting that pivot and being okay with it is also,
Yeah.
not always easy to do, but I think it is necessary.
Yeah. And I think, as I say, like the many 8 customer profiles and 3 different kind of routes to market was, again, I think part of that is important because you do need to kind of, I described it as like spinning wheels in multiple directions and seeing which one gained traction first. Because, your ideal customer tomorrow is not going to be your ideal customer today necessarily as well. And that's when we started, and Sally and I discussed this. Like Sally and I are our customer at the moment, like the geeks that are interested in data that are sustainable and want to go and buy services like this. But we know that if we're looking at residential, like our longer term customer, I used to describe as the little 90-year-old lady who used to wave to me and my daughter when I walked her to school, who had 12 solar panels on her roof. And, we need to appeal to the 95% of people who don't know what an inverter is or don't know what kilowatt hour is, because the way that we shift the needle is, we serve that wide range. There's some great solutions out there for people who are geeks. Like you can go get a Raspberry Pi and go install Home Assistant and do loads of home automation yourself. And actually, it's kind of been described as the new midlife crisis is now home automation rather than golf. But yeah, I know there's a lot of people who don't know what a Raspberry Pi is, who don't care what Home Assistant is, and also even people that do, that just don't literally have the time to sit down and try and work all that out. And those were the folks that we were trying to reach. But I think Alex's point was, is the commercial market not worth a lot more? Absolutely. And also there's some really worthwhile things that we could do in that space as well, because commercial businesses don't have an energy price cap. And I've worked in hospitality and retail, and I've seen like the extreme pressure that some of those businesses have been put under. One of my contracts in the previous role was ended because of the Ukraine war and the energy crisis there. And you see the challenges that those businesses are going through. And again, they really need a solution to this as well. Yeah. I'm really excited about the prospect of saving pubs, because obviously that's a massive cultural institution that we're losing at a rate of knots. It's incredibly exciting because we can make a big difference there, but it's also massively frustrating because you look at it and you're like, guys, energy is not as expensive as you think it is. And if you just let me show you, then when I discovered fire, we already know how to fix this problem.
Yeah. Well, if you could save the 3 pubs a week that are going under, I'll back Decent Energy for sure. That'd be amazing. I think it is 3 a week.
Got
or something
Seabrand
crazy,
going. But no, it's something like that. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's not just pubs, right? It's also restaurants and cafes and a lot of those places that have got a lot of community potential and like that make spaces, right? We're really fortunate to live in a village. We've still got like a butcher and a greengrocer, which I don't think I've seen anywhere else that I've lived in the UK. Losing those kinds of things does take a toll on a place.
Yeah. So if you were starting tomorrow, knowing everything that you know now, what would you do differently?
I was going to say, both of you need to answer that one, I'm afraid.
Go on, Sal. I talk too much.
One. I think we should have done more right at the beginning, more customer kind of questionnaires, just getting input from people. Like we did do some, but they were all people we knew. We should have done a bit more trying to actually get what people want, understanding what people think the setup is, that kind of thing. I wonder if we'd have been more successful with residential there. But I guess then now we're getting plug-in solar and plug-in batteries. So people there's a whole nother range of people now from when we started that might be interested in it. So yeah, I definitely targeted my dad's friends and our friends because I knew who had solar and who didn't, and who was with energy providers where we could get the data from, that kind of thing. Yeah, probably going a bit wider at the beginning to get feedback would have been really helpful.
Yeah, I think for me, it would be focusing more on some of the core aspects of the rest of the business. So I think when we started, I've run businesses before, so I was like, I know how commercial works, this is fine. I know how to write a statement of work and I know how to get contracts sorted. And I had like a lot of preconceptions that I knew how to run a business, but I did know how to run a certain type of business. And I think running a product business, especially in consumer facing, is completely different to running kind of professional services in kind of, serving large enterprise clients. So I think I would have spent more time focusing on the different way that the business would need to run commercially, and yeah, paying a lot more attention to that. And I think also the lesson that I've learned more recently is you fall back into old patterns very, very quickly. And I think my previous career was going to large enterprise scale organization, build out or transform technology delivery team to work much more efficiently and develop really great products. And we did that, and we developed a really great product, but then we didn't put in place the structures around it to support it from a commercial perspective and from a customer service perspective. And I think, because in my head, that's not my problem. Other people will come and do those jobs for me. And I just slot the nice technology delivery team into the large enterprise client. The problem is there's not a big enterprise client sat around the technology delivery team. So that's, I think that's the focus I would have made. And also, I think one other thing that has stuck out to me is, and this by no means is, this is definitely on me, and I don't want this to sound like a criticism of Sally or Luke or anyone else in the team, but I think the way I think about customer service, I realize coming from industries that like put that at front and center of everything they do, is if you've not been in a customer facing industry in that way before, there's just not that kind of immediate mindset of like everything, like customer comes before absolutely everything, that needs to be the first thing we work on. And I think, probably should have spent some time teaching kind of that, or like trying to foster that ethos in the team as well. Because I think it's a challenging mindset shift, especially because if your role has always been make the tech really good, develop the tech, and then you're like, well, these annoying customer people, again, kind of looking from a broader organization, there'll be a customer service team that looks after that bit, right? So yeah, I think that's been an interesting challenge as well.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. What about any sort of preconceived sort of beliefs that perhaps you had about startups that you now don't? Again, I think that's applicable to both of you.
So go on, sir.
I think you hear phrases about startups that before I didn't either understand or didn't think were really things, like the valley of death. Like they say that there's a point where you're either it won't go or will go, kind of thing. And when you're in that place, actually, you feel it. You really feel it, and it's someone muted that one really quiet. Sorry. Yeah, it's those kind of bits, and also how much like of it is networking. I didn't quite realize how much networking we'd need to do. Like Tom does the majority of it, but whenever I go along to an event or things, I have to like be on it. And actually those contacts can become lifelines in your business, which is a lot of maintenance. Like I've always struggled. So we're a very neurospicy household, but I've like struggled with making sure I keep up to date with people and friends and things. But then having to do that from a work context as well is new for me. So I didn't realize how much of that side of the business we would need to do as a startup, because in bigger companies I've worked for, it's never been on me to make those connections.
It's also that, I mean, I totally get that part, but a lot of people don't enjoy that part of business either. So having to force yourself to do something that one, you've never really had to do, but also you don't honestly really enjoy, that's a bit of a kicker, right?
Yeah, I definitely come out of them feeling a high.
Yeah.
But the anxiety I get going into them, especially the breakfasts where there's no alcohol to just take the edge off. Yeah, but at the same time, from experience now, I know it's so worth it, and I feel awesome for doing it. But yeah, going into those, I feel very apprehensive, and what if I say the wrong thing, actually that's one thing Tom has been brilliant at, is like won't say anything in the moment, but if I say something he'll go later, he'll just go, next time phrase it like this, then it will sound a bit more positive or something like that. And that's really helped me. And I'm actually doing a session with Wines, which is Women in Energy Storage, later this week, about how to communicate about things better. So that and again, that's all for startups and things like that. So there's a lot of communities there that support each other, which is really nice.
I think that's really fascinating, actually. I think that would resonate with a lot of listeners. A lot of people out there probably have very similar experiences and a sort of, kind of a dread or hatred of those moments, but then actually just putting yourself out there and doing it, and you sort of come out, better, stronger on the other side. But outside of your comfort zone, I guess.
Yeah. What about you, Tom?
Actually,
any preconceived beliefs?
Yeah, like I say, I think my preconceived belief was that I was all set up to be able to sort the commercial bit out. But no, I think more than that, But there's a few kind of like venture builders and organizations that set up startups, and they usually try and find like a commercial founder and a technical founder. And I think kind of what Sally's describing there is I'm very comfortable being the extrovert, and like that's kind of my happy place. And I'm like, I have all the energy and like get excited to go to networking events and do all that stuff. I think if we were both quite extroverted, that would probably create quite a significant challenge, because actually we'd just all be out there all the time talking to everyone, and then nothing would ever get done. Similarly, there's a massive risk there, especially if you've got folks who are very commercial and who are very technical. It's very easy to end up with two very introverted folks as well. So I think we strike a good balance there in that we've got that kind of mix of skills. I think that introvert and extrovert thing, I think is almost more important than the commercial and technical piece. Also, yeah, I thought I knew, having come from a world where I used to teach people that, you need someone who owns a product, who lives in that world and feels the pain if the product doesn't work. We've had an interesting challenge there where we've got someone who's leading on the product side at the moment who doesn't have kind of equivalent product. So I've learned a lot of lessons I already knew the hard way again, I think would probably be the right way to put it. But also, some of those risks and some of those things are just kind of necessary for where you are at the time.
Yeah.
Like what we've built with the incredibly limited amount of budget and people, I'm like constantly impressed and pleasantly surprised. And I think every now and then you've got to remind yourself, yeah, it would be lovely if we had like dedicated QA and a full-time BA and like, all of these other things that you'd expect from a enterprise scale technology team. But we aren't an enterprise scale technology team, so we can't have those things yet.
No, exactly.
But once the seed round is closed, then that's right.
Yeah. I think it's funny what you say as well, because I've definitely had this where I know something is a certain way, but if I'm in a different type of business, I'll think, I reckon I could probably make it work now though. And then you go through that journey and go, oh, I couldn't. No. So it definitely doesn't work. And then I'll probably be tempted to do it again in the future.
Yeah. It's like, I know how that works. I could definitely overcome all of the pitfalls that could potentially happen. It's like, no, actually, that's a really well-trodden path.
Yeah. And then I use the term advice very carefully, but if there was a founder 12 months behind you guys, any words of wisdom to someone in that position that you think would be worth sharing?
For me, it'd be accept that your role is going to evolve. I very much came in as a qualified Scrum Master, product owner, thinking I was going to build this tool and product own, like have the product ownership of it and things. And the amount of things I do, from payroll to networking, like it's nothing like what I expected it would be, and that's awesome, but at the same time you have to rein it in as well. So when you are out of your comfort zone, ask for help. Or say, we're not going to do this well, if I do it, is anyone else better equipped in the team? That would be my bit.
We call that the chief of effing everything on this podcast, because that's what all founders fall into that trap. Someone's got to do it, right? And if you can, you just, as the founder or co-founder or someone who wants to help, go, I can take that on. I'm not, I'm only working Monday to Friday. Might as well check a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, 60 nowadays.
And that's very
fine,
much Tom. And that's what I'm trying to stop him doing.
Yeah, that's good. That's good you've got someone like that.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I would tell a new founder, and the one thing I have to constantly tell myself, is saying no is better than not doing the thing that you said you were going to do.
Totally.
And being conscious of the amount of time that you're actually going to be able to commit to something. Like we've taken on a crazy amount of like projects, but then also side projects and also things that we want to do with folks. And it's all very exciting, very interesting, but I've started more to say no to things now because it's a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
There's only so much that you can overcome with just more and more coffee.
Totally. No, I think that's very worldly. I agree with it totally as well.
Yeah, so both fantastic nuggets of advice there. So I wish I'd had that first time around myself.
Yeah. Oh, but I say I'm telling myself it every day still.
No, that's it. We all repeat the same mistakes, like you said, when you're kind of in it, and it's very easy to advise when you're not in it day to day and have the right answer.
Yeah.
But when you are in it day to day, you just make mistakes that you have literally sat and advised other people not to make in the past.
Yeah.
Everyone does it.
And I think actually there's one possibly even more important than that, that I tell people as well, that I think very generously, lots of people have said that is something I'm reasonably good at, but I think is the most important thing, is understand what you're not good at and what you're not going to be able to do. And also, if you find something is incredibly difficult or incredibly difficult to start, or that you're struggling, like it might just be that you're not the best person to pick that up. Like you have lots of people around you that are very good at specific things that can get that stuff done very quickly and very easily. And actually, it's a case of working out what your limitations are and where other people can help them. And I think that's probably the most important thing as a early stage founder, because you don't have an infinite amount of time. You also don't have an infinite amount of resource. So being smart with where you're actually putting the effort in is
couldn't agree more. Really good advice for early stage founders. And then, like, looking ahead, right? So you talked about, the team that you've got, the team that you've built. Some of them coming at the right time, some of them having that kind of, why didn't we hire these people sooner? What sort of capability or function or individual skill set do you think is going to be either critical or will just allow you to go through that step change again in the next 12 to 18 months?
Customer
Yes.
service. Yeah. We need to have someone to support customers that isn't us guys developing it in the background. Because the questions we're getting, we're trying to build out so we can help with those questions quicker. But because of what Shifter is, and there are a lot of questions, people are apprehensive about giving you information, and we need someone to support those directly. But I think that would be the key one from a tech perspective.
Yeah, I think we've just recently brought on a chief commercial officer on a fractional basis, I mentioned before. And I think that for me has been an excellent kind of reset. It's kind of given me a fresh set of eyes to take a look at the way that we're doing things and what it is that we're prioritizing and how we need to change stuff up from how we're doing the fundraise and how we're serving commercial customers and what the things that we should be focusing on are. So yeah, I think that's probably going to be one of the most important roles that we've brought in. And then, but doubling down on the marketing side, once we've identified that, well, I think we're almost identified that ideal customer, and then doubling down on how we're communicating with them and how we're explaining who we are and what we do. Because as I say, we had a lot of potential customers, we've got a lot of different routes to market, and it's now a case of going, actually, this is the one that's probably worth the most. This is what we want to go after, and making sure that we're really clear as a business with our direction of travel. And as I say, for now, that ideal customer we know will change over time.
Right.
And we may even find that in 6 months we've spent time and effort in that direction, but actually we've then discovered something else that's pushed us in a different direction. And as I say, I think we'll spend a lot of time doing kind of like agile coaching and spent a lot of time looking at ways that businesses operate. And I think, we mentioned it earlier in the call, but that ability to pivot and having that flexibility to do so, I think is really, really key. So the most important hire right now is definitely in commercial. That's going to help us move to the next 6 months. But to tell you what the next most important thing would be in 6 months' time, I think would be an interesting challenge.
We had that crystal ball, right? I guess we'd all be millionaires, as they say.
Yeah. I can't remember who said it. It was some management thing, but someone was saying a 5-year plan is just an exercise in vanity. It's lovely to be able to talk about what the trajectory is of the business, but you need to kind of hold that quite lightly because, there's so many things that could happen between now and then. Our biggest risk as a business is probably fusion. Fusion energy takes off, all bets are off.
Yeah. That's it.
But it's probably not 6 months away, but you never know.
Yeah.
But no, energy is a constantly changing landscape, right? So it's,
Exactly that. An incredibly dynamic environment, operating environment. And then also just, as you said, in a startup scale-up environment, progress is never linear in a straight line, is it? It's ups and downs and sometimes it's U-turns. But that's part of the fun and the journey, right? So we'll do it for better or worse.
And sorry, you've kicked me into some sort of very philosophical mode now. I don't know what's going on.
Nuggets.
I was going to say the other thing is just accepting failure. I think is another important piece of this as well. Going, right, that didn't work. Let's move on. Let's do something else. But I think that's key.
Yeah, I think you need someone in the business that is able to. Well, it's like you said earlier, Sally, you're trying to be a bit more accountable for Tom in terms of don't work weekends. You shouldn't have to be doing that. You need other people in the business that are good at saying, look, that's just not working, guys. Let's move on, because you can get founders that are obsessed with that one. They felt brilliant idea. And I'm not saying either of you are like this, but they can't hold on to things for too long because that was their baby, their passion, and it's not working. It's very difficult for them to actually see that it's not working. So you do need that in the business, which is easier said than done. I mean, in my last business, we were really hot on one another. If you had a meeting and someone was a bit short or a little bit, punchy, you sort of think you need a holiday, mate. And I'm going to sort of say, please go on holiday. See you in a week, But that was really good. It was amazing for us because we weren't able to necessarily see that. You just found yourself being a bit agitated and you just needed a break, a proper break. So it is important.
On your point there, Tom, about accepting failure. So I'm sort of fascinated by this at the moment with a personal perspective, really. So it's a bit of a tangent, but with my kids and just sort of culturally, because there's a lot of talk around the UK versus the US and how we are culturally. And the US is it's seemingly kind of set up to fail and encourage failure. And we don't seem to be set up that way culturally in the UK as much. And as a result, there's plenty of people drawing parallels between that cultural thing and then the success of the US, startup environment versus the UK. So, I mean, do you see that? Do you think that we have a problem with problem, but culturally in the UK with sort of seeking failure? And would we be better if we all went out and sought to fail more?
I don't know if you seek to fail.
Well,
taking a risk where failure is a realistic outcome.
Not be objected to do that. Yeah.
If you're intentionally failing, I think that's a different thing. But I definitely do. I think like the one place that it really stands out as well, I think, is in politics and places like that as well. Like you look at if a politician or a senior leader, not just politics, actually private sector as well, a politician or a senior leader kind of fails, then the immediate response is, we should definitely fire them now. And I always think that's a massive missed opportunity because that person definitely is not going to fuck up in exactly the same way again. Do we do swearing on this one? I'm not sure.
Yeah, just is.
Yeah, I think that's really important to recognize that actually, someone's cocked up and actually they're going to learn from that and they can now take that forward and make sure that same thing doesn't happen again. As long as it's not like clearly negligent.
Yeah.
But we should be encouraging people to quit just because they've been through a challenge and it's not come out the way that they intended to. I think we do shy away from failure, I think, much more just as a culturally than maybe they do in the US. And it goes back actually to the comment made earlier, like move fast and break stuff was I think Musk's line, wasn't it? There is a little bit of that required, but I think it depends what the stakes are as well. Like if you blow up your very expensive rocket and really the only person that loses is you, fine to break stuff. If we make a mistake and we cost social housing a whole bunch of money on energy or miss the opportunity to save people a lot of money, it all depends on what the stakes are.
I'm just going to add to that though, but this is also very close to my heart at the moment, is the school, because it is built, the curriculum is built for neurotypical kids. And if you look, and especially in the startup world, there's a lot of neurodivergent people there because we don't fit into the boxes. My daughter in particular keeps thinking she's failing because she's not meeting what is expected, but she's doing it in a completely different way. And I think that's one of the fascinating things I'm learning is actually, is it failure or is it just the way society is raising us? It's a really fascinating area that I can go on to for ages.
Yeah, that's a topic for another conversation.
Yeah.
I think that we might have run out of time, unless you've got anything else that you want to go through, Alex.
No, I think that ends it perfectly. Thank you very much for joining us. It was a fascinating recording. So thanks again for your time. It was a really good one.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.